Vanch, a little ATP breakdown, and I want to start right away with the Barcelona Open. I was wondering, actually, before we got to the conclusion of this event with Holger Rune defeating Carlos Alcaraz, was Carlitos a realistic contender to actually sweep the clay court season? And maybe sort of reality has set in of just how difficult that is to do. Of
Yeah, firstly, thank you, Ben, so much again for having me. It was a pleasure last time. And
course.
yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think that was a fair guess to, or something to kind of ponder, as he was going on this run in Barcelona, because he wasn't, he didn't drop a set. He went through some tough moments. I would say not always playing his best tennis, but you look at the rest of the field, you look at Sinner being out right now, you look at kind of his capabilities on clay versus everyone else, and there is a chance, especially Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Madrid. It felt like he could go on a tear and at least win these three tournaments. And obviously, physically, it's a really hard thing to do. Rafa Nadal, has done four of these five tournament wins many, many times, and he's like a rare exception as far as that feat goes. And it's cool that you brought that up because Carlos, after the final, actually alluded to that fact, and
Yeah.
he has so much more appreciation, even more so. He already did, but even more so of how incredible it is what that Nadal was able to do that for so many years, including some years in his 30s.
Yeah, it's pretty astonishing to think about. And as you said, like exception to the rule, I don't think we're ever going to see another Rafa on the clay courts. Carlos feels like the favorite now, but Holger Rune, he's someone who obviously I think we go back like 2022, he was probably a name that we were looking at. This could be a future Grand Slam contender. Maybe had some challenges over the past couple of years with consistency and form. I like his game on the clay, and he just looks more disciplined, solid, and self-assured on the court right now. And you could feel that in the final against Alcaraz, where he was pretty much in lockdown mode throughout that match.
Yeah, and it's the lockdown mode and defense that really enables his skill set to shine on the clay because he's got all the shots in terms of the variety. I mean, when you first watched him, I mean the talent ability was tremendous. It was vast, almost similar to Alcaraz. The way he's able to come forward, finish points, tremendous, drop volleys, feel, but also just really good ability to get into that Djokovician lockdown mode where he's just so hard to hit through, and we saw that in the final. But throughout the course of the week, and the last couple of years have been tough for him. I mean, it's been 2 years since he won that title in Munich, and obviously the first half of 2023 was just fantastic. 1,000 finals in Monte Carlo and Rome, and he was at number 4 in the world. And many people were asking the question, is it a sort of is he going to be right in line with Carlos and Yannick as kind of the new next three of that generation? And yeah, since then he's gone through a lot of coaching changes, and I think now I think he knows that Lars Christensen is probably his kind of go-to guy in the corner that he seems to have the most stability with. And I like the tennis that he played all week, and the discipline, like you mentioned, and going for the right shots at the right time, because he's always been extremely good at that. But at times, I feel like he's been too overly in one direction, like either too aggressive or a
Yeah.
little too defensive, and he hasn't quite managed to read the situations super well when it comes to yeah, achieving that full potential. But I feel like more and more, we're going to see that more often from him now, and he's back inside the top 10 as
Yeah,
well.
that's huge for him. I think you're right. Like a little more clarity on the court with how he wants to play. I think the biggest memory for, maybe Holger fans is beating Novak at that Paris Masters final, which was such a dogfight. And you saw him on the other side, and you felt like some type of younger mirrored version of Novak the way he plays. Like that defensive slide backhand's incredible. Great counter punching ability. I sort of feel though like his best tennis is actually on the clay.
Hmm. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, we saw him make those finals in Monte Carlo and Rome, and he won his first title in 2022 in Munich, and he backed it up again the following year, and he's made two Roland Garros quarterfinals, and that's where he can really allow the kind of full skill set to shine, and he can hand back and soak up a lot of the his pace absorbing skills are just phenomenal
Yeah.
when he's able to get in those exchanges. And he mentioned the Djokovic Alcaraz Olympic final after he won this one, as sort of he watched that very closely, and he sees that as something that he could use in his own game when it comes to getting into that lockdown mode. And he has a terrific backhand as well that he can go toe to toe with against Carlos, and he relishes that challenge of being out there and proving something against the best young player that there is.
Yeah.
So.
No, 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 definitely. Another guy who's kind of relishing the challenge. I've been super high on him. I don't shy away from talking about Arthur Fils, who made three consecutive quarterfinals leading in, including Monte Carlo, Indian Wells, Miami. does one better. Obviously, it's an ATP 500, but another step forward, making the semifinals here before he gets stopped by Carlos Alcaraz. Does it feel like to you a matter of time before we see this guy in the top 10 and maybe competing to land a spot in the ATP finals by the end of the year?
Yeah, it certainly looks like it's heading that way in terms of, that consistency has been nice to see, 2 quarters and or 3 Masters 1000 quarters this year and the semifinal here. He's got the heaviest forehand on the ATP tour right now, and
It's huge.
he can do so much damage. And we've seen him do it across all surfaces now, so that does encourage me. There seems to be a little bit more stability as well in his game. I mean, there's still plenty of room to grow as well. You see, he's absolutely not a finished product, and that has to be encouraging going into parts of the year where last year he had a few more first round losses, and I feel like this year his floor is a lot higher actually than and the ceiling has always been there. So it's encouraging to see, and he should absolutely be in that mix at the end of the year to qualify for the final eight, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I certainly think so. I want to jump over to Munich, BMW Open, and we had there obviously Alexander Zverev, number one seed, and playing behind the home crowd. It's been a brutal season for him, 2025, probably by his standards. He did make the Australian Open final, but really going through it afterwards. And I suppose he's righted the ship this past week, getting his first title of the season, beats Ben Shelton 6-2, 6-4 in the finals. You get a title like this, the confidence probably goes up, and now we sort of have to ask, is Zverev back in the conversation to compete again at the French Open where he finaled last year?
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of months have been very disappointing for him across all any metric. I mean, he was 6-6
Yeah.
after the Australian Open final coming into this, and obviously that loss definitely took its toll. And he played those tournaments in February in South American swing, where he said it afterwards in Miami that that was probably a mistake. But I think more he also just felt the pressure of having finally a really awesome chance to become world number one, and obviously that would make him that's huge for someone like him and his CV to get that number one ranking once. And so I think that was weighing on his mind. He also mentioned going back to an older racket that he used before the Australian Open, and an injury that he suffered maybe in February. So there are probably a lot of reasons why we saw a subpar version of Zverev, but he's back home playing in Munich where he's won it twice. And the key match of the week was against Talon Griekspoor, where Griekspoor served for the match.
Hmm.
And that was that tight situation. Once you felt like Zverev got through that match, it was clear that he was probably the favorite, going forward. And yeah, now he carries that confidence into Madrid, a tournament that he's done really well at. He's won twice, and like you said, Roland Garros has been his best major. Like the last 4 years, he's made semifinals or better. So I think he's absolutely in that conversation. The question is just, can he get over that hump at the semis and finals against the best players, and can he go after his shots when it really matters at 4-all in the fifth set?
100%. And that's a good segue. Like Madrid, obviously, let's do a quick preview here. Thank you guys so much for watching us at Matchpoint Canada. If you like our work, follow along, hit the subscribe button below.